Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of the RBNY UK podcast. And there is a familiar face for you looking on YouTube. Mr. Luke Hume, welcome back.
No, it's been a long time. Been a long
Been a long
time.
time.
I
But
haven't actually missed many episodes. Weirdly enough, I've been afraid I haven't missed many episodes.
no, not at all. But I've got a small little trivia questions for you to begin with. So just welcome the visitors back into it. So
Yeah.
some nice little trivia questions, right? So in the United States flag, there are stripes on the flag. One color is white. What are the other stripe colors?
God.
Come on.
Blue, red.
Blue. So red. Okay. The
White,
St.
red.
George's flag on the English flag, right, is what
Yeah.
color? The cross is what color?
Red.
Okay.
Oh,
If you receive 2 yellow cards in football, what do you get?
red.
And what color is New York?
Red, baby.
There we go.
Oh, it's good intro.
It took me a minute to get there, but it was worth it. Yes, everyone is now smiling because we're reminiscing of the great times of last Sunday. And yes, it was a good one. Okay, it was another 1-0. But in football, if you score more than your opposition and you concede less than them, yeah, you're going to win a football game. And now, same points as NYCFC, who once was running away from us. They were in second, we were in 10th. And that gap slowly started closing, and now they're in 8th, we're in 9th with exactly the same record, apart from obviously goals for and against. So, Luke,
Yeah.
you was once the man that everyone called deluded for being so optimistic. Obviously, everyone goes through a spell. Even you at one point went, I'm not quite sure about these playoffs. However, did you ever actually think with 5 games remaining we was going to catch NYCFC?
Not really. My season, I started out really optimistic. I thought, we'll do quite well this season. And then when we won a few games. We beat Orlando twice. But we can actually win the Shield this year. And then we get Cookman for Toffee. I don't know why, but now we can't stop winning again.
No, yeah, 100%. I do remember that podcast. I think it might have been episode 6, I think it was, where we had just gone down to Orlando, we had beaten them, and everyone was on cloud 9. Literally everyone was ecstatic. Everyone was thinking, actually, you know what?
I think that's the one that had Mark on. I think Mark had Mark on. And Mark said, well, I think we can now get a home playoff spot. And I think not many people would disagree with that then. And then it all turned.
No, exactly. But I think the counter argument to that now is obviously we weren't 100% sure about was we even going to make the playoffs. But obviously it's a very tight conference at the moment and nothing's guaranteed. But if you are looking at the table, obviously New England are absolutely running away with the East. They're on 66 points. But then you look at it, Nashville, 48 points. Philadelphia, 46 points. Orlando, 45 points. Atlanta, 42 points. DC, 41. Montreal, 41. New York City, 40. And Red Bulls, 40. So you're looking at Philadelphia in third, and it's only 6 points. Yes, it's a very tricky run-in what the Red Bulls have. However, the MLS is the MLS at the end of the day. And everyone always says it, that as long as you're in or thereabouts going into the last few games of the season, you have a chance. And credit's got to be given. And Gerhard Struber and the boys have turned it around, because there was a very dark spot in this team at one point. It was very dark. It was get everyone out. None of these players are good enough. But when the tough get going, the players actually started playing and they actually realised, look, we can still make something of this season. And Struber has turned it around. All right, some people still not his biggest fan. I'm a big fan. And it's changed what I've like to say. I remember us talking about it at length on multiple podcasts about the formation, and it was always the same. But he's changed the formation up. He's changing the team up a lot more. He's rotating the team, and I think he's finally getting the MLS with you can't play the same 11 every single game. You can sometimes get away with it in the Premier League where you're not travelling that much, but in the MLS you need rotation. And these players who are coming in off rotation, you look at Omir Fernandez, for example, he's been absolutely sensational since he's come in. Caceres is playing absolutely class. Drew Yearwood had an absolute blinder against NYCFC. He played really well, and this is what you need. Even having Fabio obviously starting because Klimala had his slight injury. Not these players as a squad, and you need a squad. And you look at NYCFC now, and all the questions are now on them. Our good friend Barney from UK NYCFC, I was seeing him tweeting about it, how there's so much discontent in their team at the moment, and so many of their players are just not performing. And that's what we had before this unbeaten streak. And I don't know if you agree with me here, Luke, but the players have really pulled their socks up and actually have done a credit to them and obviously a credit to Gerhard as well.
Yeah, because like when we went on that run up, after we beat Orlando, we didn't win for ages. Things got probably the darkest I've known Red Bull since I started following the team. It got very dark. Like it was a lot of questions, not just about the managing the play, but about the ownership. Do the ownership really care? Like New York is one of the biggest sporting markets in the world, and we're not capitalizing on it. Like we can't sell out the stadium, and there's always so many questions going to like Red Bull. Do you really care? Like, you need to spend some money. Obviously, all that infamous thing when Breaking Army got out a banner and then we scored a goal. But they have turned it around. I still think. I still don't think getting the playoffs is good enough for us. I think Red Bull should always be aiming to get in the top to be challengers for Sports Shield. But we can't score. We still can't really score, but we can keep clean sheets. That's what wins you championships in the United States. If you can get a 1-0 win and shut up shop, that wins you the Emirates Cup. Seen year and year and year again in its league. Teams sneak in the playoffs and get all the way to the final and win 1-0. That could win us the championship. I'm not saying it will. Hopefully it will. Hopefully I get a nice trip to America this year. The borders open again soon. But yeah, I think the players have done much better. We've seen some players emerge, like some players you probably wouldn't expect to emerge. Like I think Tom Edwards done really well this season. Hopefully we see him back next year. Carlos Cornell got so much stick in the season, and has completely proved all that is wrong because he's a great goalkeeper. Yes, he has the odd mistake. Every goalkeeper does. But he's a very good goalkeeper. And to me, I mean, he's the best goalkeeper I've seen us in the net since Luis Robles.
No, 100%. Just touching on that, I don't think anyone can disagree. We've been rebounding around with a few keepers, and obviously Jensen and Mira and all these names, but he's really staked the claim in his team now. And I remember halfway through the season, we spoke about like who our surprise players of the season was, and one of the ones that everyone nominated was Coronel, because it doesn't matter if the game is 1-0, you lose 4-0, you draw 3-0, he always will make one big save every single game. That's the one thing that's guaranteed. And same again weekend, there was a couple of really big saves. And when you go on a streak of winning games by 1-0, obviously questions have risen about the attacking force and why aren't you scoring more than one. However, then the counter argument is to that, if you don't concede, the defence is doing very well, because it's been the problem in years past with Red Bulls where we could always score 3 or 4, but we could always concede 3 or 4. And that was always the problem, as you always had to outscore your opponent. So it's nice to have a bit of a change. And I think obviously there was a few changes going into the team against NYCFC, and the team was obviously Coronel in goal, Cole Duncan, Andres Reyes, Sean Nealis, Gutman, John Tolkien, Caceres, Yearwood, Davis, Omir Fernandez, and obviously Fabio up top. Obviously there's always going to be slight changes, but there's been some absolute like class players this season who you got to argue who is the first name on the team sheet. And I think obviously Sean Davis, brilliant season, one of the first names on the team sheet. Sean Nealis as well, one of the first names. Coronel, one of the first names on the team sheet. But then like people out now picking up form is also brilliant. Caceres is looking very good again. His engine keeps going and going and going. It didn't help, obviously, the stoppage halfway through the season for him for the Copa America, going all the way down to Brazil to play for Venezuela. It's never going to be easy for someone to travel down middle of season, interrupts your routine. You're playing a few extra games, hard opposition, like tricky conditions as well. So it took him time to recover. And even players like Omi and Fernandez, like people always said, he needs to get his chance. And he's got his chance this year, and he's taken it in the later part of the season. He's been scoring goals. He's been playing really well. And it's good to have him rotating in between, because obviously we look at the 3 players who actually made it off the bench this weekend, which was Klimala, obviously, which was just due to injury why he didn't start. Wiki Carbona, who always seems to get on the pitch, and Diarra, which has been nice to see him actually getting some minutes again, because he's been struggling obviously all season with different injuries, and obviously playing 43 minutes and in your debut getting injured and being ruled out for months is never easy. But it's good to see him finally getting some time on the pitch. Obviously didn't use all of our subs, but sometimes you don't have to in football. Like sometimes managers make changes for change's sake, but what seems to be working out with Struber is doing the right subs at the right time, just to inject a bit more life into the game. And there was even players you look on the bench who didn't get off. Okay, Roy is coming to the end of his time, and everyone thinks at Rebels, but you got Caden Clark, who can say the same thing, but still a great young player. Frankie Amaya, Tom Edwards. These are players who could start, and it's a good squad depth. And now slowly that the injuries are going and we're getting the squad back, it's looking a lot fresher. And this was an issue that I think Anthony brought up, Daniel brought up, you, everyone's brought it up this season. You can't forget the early part of the season and how many injuries we had.
Yeah, the injuries. Oh God, the injuries crisis was ridiculous. How many injuries we had at that start of the season? I was like losing Aaron Long in like game week 4, 5. Never going to help. And we can't have been playing in Ryan. I know it's a bit more settled now, but we were playing where we were makeshift defence for a lot of time. Tormentor was playing centre half. He's not centre half. He's a very good player. I think he's very good to be channeling right back. I think that's his spot now, because we know Carl Duncan's not going to be in next year. Pretty likely. But yeah, I think we're now really showing we've got a bit more fitness. We're showing this team is not a bad team, and we will keep going.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And we're really seeing some players come into their own in the last part of the season, which is really good, and hopefully continue into next season and even hopefully keeping into the postseason. But I'm a very rigid person in terms of I would never speak about the off season until it's fully confirmed. So you won't be hearing anything off season until it's confirmed, or if not, then we'll be looking at the playoffs from an outsider's thinking what could have happened. But just briefly before we touch on the next game this weekend, I'm just going to go around the MLS this weekend and just see the scores. So it was quite a high scoring week for goals. And when I say high scoring week, it's just an MLS weekend. But Montreal drew 2-2 with Philadelphia. LAFC beat San Jose 3-1. Columbus Crew, who obviously is Rebels' next opposition, beat Inter Miami 4-0, but who doesn't beat Inter Miami? New England had a 2-2 draw of Chicago. Orlando won 1-0 in Cincinnati, which was a rather surprise on my part. Toronto went 2-0 at home to Atlanta, so it can't be all Armas's fault. DC played out a 0-0 draw of Nashville. Houston beat Seattle 2-1, which was another surprise because Seattle have been playing very well this season. Minnesota beat Austin 1-0. Real Salt Lake beat Colorado 3-1. The Galaxy beat Portland 2-1, and what we love to see, the Rebels obviously beating NYCFC 1-0, and then finally Vancouver beating Sporting Kansas City 2-1. And like the MLS being the MLS, and I think Lucas said it every single podcast, is you don't really know what's going to happen in the MLS. And you do look at the table and you've kind of think, obviously, New England are way gone. Congratulations, you've done very well in the East. But all of these teams between 2 and arguably 10th, there's 8 positions there which are very interchangeable. And all teams are not picking up as every single point. Obviously, we've put together a couple of few straight wins and draws, so boost it up. But is any one of 8 teams, would you say, Luke, that have a very good chance of getting home advantage in the playoffs?
Yeah, like there's like 2 points between the teams at the moment. 2 points, I think it is.
Yeah, 5th to 9th is 2 points, yeah.
So all it takes is Red Bulls to win a couple of games, Red Bulls lose a couple of games. It's wide open. It's wide and open. Wide and
100%.
open.
No, yeah, 100%. And me and Anthony touched on it last week when we said it was just how big the game was this Sunday against NYCFC, because it was a 6-pointer. You lose that, and you're far away from the players, and it's probably one of the final nails in the coffin. And you're probably like, but winning that, and obviously the energy that it gives to not just the players and the management, but also the fan base. I've got to say a special message because the South Ward was exceptional this weekend. I know we say it every single game, but it really can be the difference makers, especially when people come to RBA. South Ward from before the first minute to the last minute and well on through the night. There's such an asset to have in the club, and I've got to say my one experience of actually being in the South Ward was one of my favourite in football, and I can't wait for it to come again. But when you look at teams coming to Red Bull Arena, and like especially NYCFC, obviously the first game against them this season at RBA, it finished 1-1 with a very, very late penalty, but we played them 3 times this year. And they were a team at one point that was pushing for support shield. And now obviously their train's kind of derailed a bit, but I don't think any person in the Red Bull fan base can actually complain, Luke, about the performances against NYCFC this year. I think you muted yourself there, right? Look, he's been back for 2 minutes. He's muted himself, and now he's going to start smiling. He's going to say, "It's newbies and all this."
I think this has been for the season. We heard from the New York media, MLS media, that NCFC was going to get it right, or win this, win that. I'm going to just come back to the same like NYCFC. Gets a bite scraping in the playoffs and gets in the first round. Now, what's going to happen? But Red Bull still won't get the what's the word? Still won't get what the praise they deserve because it doesn't fit MLS agenda. Doesn't fit the agenda of MLS.
Yeah, and I think a small thing that a few Red Bulls fans picked on, it was a very little thing, but on the MLS website after the game, they actually obviously quoted the Red Bulls, but had New York Israel. I think that's the first time I've actually seen a main page article from the MLS showing Red Bulls actually winning the game, but also saying the old New York is red, which is great to see. But I think touching obviously just going away from the Smurfs from Yankee Stadium and looking ahead to another massive game on Saturday, which I'm very happy to tell anyone listening to us in the UK, it will be live on Sky Sports Football at 11 p.m. on Saturday, which is great for us. It's another Sky Sports game, which I think actually shows that Red Bulls are playing well, because they don't put Red Bulls on Sky Sports this season unless it was right at the beginning. And then for about 10, 15 straight games, it was not Sky Sports. It was either Premier Sports, Free Sports, or just not shown at all. But we obviously were saying how it was a big game against NYCFC. The big games don't stop now. Every game is a big game. But you're looking at Columbus one spot below Red Bulls. 3 points different. So obviously if we lose, we're on the same points. Draw stays 3, but we win 6 points gap, which keeps it. It's then like making a bigger gap between the playoffs and the rest. But also, you look at some of the other games this weekend, and I'm just going to read through the fixtures for the upcoming weekend. So some of these will have happened by the time this podcast comes out. So I will be talking about the ones on the weekend, which are obviously less because there's quite a few Thursday night football games this week. But we're looking at Saturday. We've got Seattle Sounders Sporting Kansas City, obviously, which doesn't affect us that much, but that is Saturday, 23rd of October at 8:30. That is live on Sky Sports as well. And then on Sunday, very early hours, is Philadelphia Nashville, Luke, which is obviously going to pique some interest for Red Bulls now, especially because either one or two have got to drop points. And these now we're getting into a point where we've got to look at the other teams, which is a lot better than just trying to look at the Red Bulls game and then that's it.
Yeah, I think Nashville will get second. I think Nashville's I'll be very surprised if Nashville don't get second place. So I look very good this season.
And
But I think third only is that for grabs. Like it's all there.
Yeah,
It's all there.
100%, 100%, and especially having Philadelphia is third going up against Nashville, who is second at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, if say for example that game finishes a draw, or say if Nashville win, we'll have a game in hand on Philadelphia, and we're 6 points behind them. So, someone's going to drop points in that game. It's that simple. So, and then the other games, obviously, early hours game, 12:30 Sunday, 24th of October, is Toronto and Montreal. Then also another big game in context for Red Bulls is New York City DC United, which is a very similar thing of someone's got to drop points. And it's getting to a point now where you're looking at all these games and thinking there's chances here because people have got to play each other. And when you look at DC United in 6th and you're looking at NYCFC in 8th, so you've got 2nd v 3rd and 6th v 8th and then 9th v 10th. They're 3 big games in the Eastern Conference in terms of the actual grand scheme of it, because no one wants to drop points, especially against Eastern rivals. And obviously how it's all set up this season with only the very few selected Western games is that most of these games are big games. And obviously I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm a bit of a stickler for this because I was thinking about this the other night and how different it makes it is having East and West, because when you play East all the time, it's every time you play an East team, it's a big game. Whereas obviously you still need the points against the West teams, but if you beat a West team, obviously you gain 3 points, but the other team are not really losing 3 points because that's in a completely different separate field to you. But when you beat NYCFC, it's a 6-point game, so you gain 3 of them and they lose 3. So I don't. Would you? This could be a very long discussion, but I'd like to hear back from some of the followers. I'm going to put this question out on Friday, like when this goes out onto Twitter, just to see people's response. But do you like this approach? Obviously, because COVID, they've done it. But would you like to see less East v West games in the future, or do you quite like the games flying near enough halfway across the world, so to speak, to play an LA team or a Seattle?
I think it's going to become inevitable soon that we get a third conference. I think that's going to happen with the continued growth of MLS, with all the new expansion teams. We will get a Eastern Conference, a Western Conference, and probably a Central Conference. I would imagine that's going to happen in the foreseeable future. But
No, yeah, agreed.
I think the problem is with the lack of West games at the moment. It's not really an even schedule. Like each team is far better than the West. So I don't think it works for even Sport Shield either. With such an uneven schedule, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's hard to how do you go to you play twice schedule? With the amount of teams we've got in the league, it's probably not going to work.
No.
Like we already got. Was it 30? Is it 2019? No, is it 30? We hit 30 yet.
There is 14 in the Eastern Conference, and in the West is 13. So we're at 27 at the moment. Obviously, before expansion,
we've got 4 expansion planned, and John Garver wants to go to 40. So you'll be playing each other. You'll be playing 40 games a season. No, play each other twice. Oh bloody hell!
Playing everyone twice, be 78 games. So it's really fun. That's going to be an NBA season. You can't do it.
You can't do it. It's not possible. So the question will be: do they split the league up? Do you get an MLS top league and MLS second league? You could argue they've already started to do this really with the MLS next division. They're starting to decide the American pyramid already. Something might disagree, but I think there's more to the MLS net than meets the eye. I don't think it's as simple as
I think that's a fair argument. I think it's a very
um,
fair argument, especially how there's still an opening and a grey area between certain USL teams at the moment, and obviously if they're switching over to the next, whether uh, for a matter of speech, Rebels 2 goes to the MLS next and either slightly changes name or whatever. There's obviously a very grey area about that, and obviously it'd be a very good talking point once it's had the confirmation of whether USL is going to be the option for the Rebels 2 or they switch to the next program, which it's going to be an interesting.
I think it's for bit. I think it's going to happen that the Red Bull 2 do eventually go to MLS next. I don't think they have a lot of choice. Things about USL and MLS use each other when they needed to use each other.
Mm-hmm.
MLS use it to get team development, and USL used MLS to get rid of the North American Soccer League. And it worked. Yeah. Both parties got what they wanted, and now they're going separate ways. Question is now is, can the USL stand up on its own? And you could argue it might not be able to. You actually got thriving teams like Phoenix Rising, your Las Vegas, like teams that are thriving. Then you got teams who are struggling to get 100 people. So there's this argument. Well, top teams maybe. It's like the old New York Cosmos argument. Yes, they were a great team in the NSL, but the rest of the teams didn't weren't. They were struggling to break even. Even the green side of New York struggled to make money. That's why they're not running a team at the moment. Why they went bankrupt about 3 times since they came back 10 years ago. So it's a tricky one. We need to wait and see what more is going to happen. Development and running new pyramid if it does happen. But it's not a clear cut as well. It doesn't work, but it does work. At the end of the day, the US climate, the size of the country, is a big obstacle to what we know football, what we know football in Europe. It's like 100%. It's that map of the UK. Have you ever seen that map of the US?
Yeah.
All the teams across Europe, like some of the journey, like I think New York to LA is like 9. Is it? I can't remember how long that is. Well, some of the trips are like silly time. Like you could get. For example, I'm going to Scotland next year. I'm going to Scotland Highlands for a holiday. It's going to take me about 4 hours to get there. We plane then get driving to Highlands. That wouldn't get you out of New York State.
No.
But you start out of New York City, that wouldn't get you out of New York State. I'm flying out of the country.
Yeah, I know. And I think the best one I was thinking about in terms of that, for example, for an Arsenal fan, if he was travelling to Newcastle, which is the longest away game of the season, is the equivalent of Red Bulls going to DC United. Very similar mileage, and that is one of the closest teams. So obviously it's a massive argument, and it'd be one of them that we will see. And I'm sure there'll be some more news coming out soon regarding all that. So it has gone a bit quiet since day one, and I expect Red Bulls to probably make an announcement maybe at the end of the season potentially, when obviously it all quiets down a bit, so they can try and drip feed some information. But just before we go into talking about that English fellow who used to wear number 99 playing against us again this weekend, I was just looking at the ESPN power rankings from the MLS, and there's actually one thing that I'd like to touch on, because there's been a lot of criticism from Red Bulls fans for a long time about the MLS digital team and how they undervalue Red Bulls all the time. But looking at the power rankings prior to the New York Derby game, New York City were in 14th position and Red Bulls are in 15th position. And the new power rankings which have come out has seen New York City drop 5 positions to 19th and Red Bulls increase their position by 6 to 9th. So at least ESPN are finally saying, actually, this team is playing really well at the moment, and it's good to see.
Bloody time.
Yeah, as you say. And hopefully soon the MLS will realise as well. But but that's a sticky and long road to go down with the MLS digital media team. So briefly, just looking at the game, obviously Saturday, which obviously was we said before, is Saturday 11 p.m. in the UK, obviously 6 o'clock in the East. But it's Love and Sky Sports, and obviously a former hero returns. Well, a former hero's playing against Red Bulls. I wouldn't say return. Obviously, they've got some big players as well, Columbus, and it's going to be a tricky game. Obviously, they are 3 points below the Red Bulls at the moment, so it's another 6-point game. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a tricky one. And whereas before, I would say I can near enough guarantee I could pick the right team. I'm not sure if I can now. Do you see any changes this weekend?
I don't know. It's going to be. I think you could argue that's change the winning team. You could also argue that they're probably quite tired. And which is a match-win game, maybe stretch legs. And it's going to be quite interesting to see what team puts out. I can tell you one thing: Carlos Cornell will be in goal. I'll tell you that. Unless there's some sort of major injury, he's going to be in goal. I would bet my heights on it.
Yeah,
it's a certainty.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think the two other names you can definitely put in there is Sean Nealis and Sean Davis. But I think obviously the big one obviously is going to be obviously Klimala was questionable for last week's fixture and obviously come off the bench. So if he's fully fit, I can pretty much see him coming in for Fabio. I think that's fair to say. Obviously, Fabio, I wouldn't say Fabio had a poor game against him. I think he played quite well in the first half, but Klimala brings that different. I think he suits the one striker formation a bit more than Fabio. But otherwise, the team, obviously, Tom Edwards, does he come back in? It's a tricky one at the moment because obviously you got Reyes and Nealis. Obviously, Gutman's playing very well at left back. John Tolkien in his hybrid role of he can play wherever he wants because his mullet's back and just love the mullet. So he can do whatever he wants.
The other big question is right back. Do you play Cal Duncan, who's not going to be in that season? He's not signing a contract. It looks very likely he'll be heading to Europe. Do you keep playing him when you need to win games, but he's not going to be in that season? Do you believe he still wants to? He got everyone to win the game? Because he's unlikely he'll be in that season. We don't know if Tom Edwards will be in that season. I hope he will be. I think that's the obvious answer when Carl goes to get Tom Edwards in. There's a lot of questions on it, and it actually leads me quite perfect in my segment. It does. It's called "Who Sits in the Road That Summer."
Ooh.
Right. So I came back and I planned a segment. So I got almost in front of me. I've got the whole team, the whole roster. I'm going to go through them one by one, and we're going to give them a tag. Are they going to be here, or are they going to be hitting the road? So the first one is number 1, Carlos Cornell. He's taking number 13, but he's number 1 in goal, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think technically he's on loan from Salzburg? I don't think they're getting at Salzburg. Can we afford? Is it probably got a big cap? But I would love to see him in that season. I think it will be.
I'm going to put yes tag on him. I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was another loan deal, to be honest. I think what he's given to Rebels this year, especially the New York Rebels, is great. And like you say, do Salzburg see him as a candidate? I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to say he will be starting between the sticks come 2022.
So the next one is another goalkeeper. It's a New York native, Irish number 3, Ryan Meara. I would love to see him here next season. I'm not certain he will be. The question is he happy sitting on the bench? And from what we've seen from him, he's quite happy doing that. He did it for Luis Robles. He's done it this season, did it last season. So I would just say we'd be quite happy to stay at his hometown club. He's not too worried about getting another team. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know where we go now. I think a couple of years ago we got an MLS club. I don't know if he will get MLS club starting point now. I think you're probably looking at like high USL team. So you could argue he's better off staying here, making a little cameo appearance in the cup and a couple of league games if Carlos ever gets injured. You could argue that he's better off staying here.
Yeah, I have to agree. I can't see him going, to be honest. I think he's got to a point where he realises that starting position for another MLS team is quite low. Like, not saying he's not good enough, but he's got to a point of his career where I think he will be here come beginning of pre-season camp.
Yeah, I agree. But the next one is technically part of our Royce that he's not played a single minute of his season so far. Luka Lewis, he's the third goalkeeper. He travelled to Toronto, was it? We went to Toronto, tried Toronto, went on the bench, and the young goalkeeper, he's a third choice. He'll be in next season.
Yeah, like you say, touched on that. Toronto is just because of Mira's fees and passport issues that he was there, but he's always one that he's going to be waiting for the time that Mira maybe departs or falls out of the roster, and he'll give his chances. Yeah, I can't see why he wouldn't be, to be honest.
No, I can't. So the next one is, it's funny if we're asking he's going to be in road. He's not played a single game yet, but he's already just got here. It's Lucas Mazon, and he's on loan.
Yeah,
he will definitely be in that season.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Like that. Andres Reyes, he'll be in that season.
Yeah, agreed.
Andrew Gutman, that's the big one. He's on loan from Atlanta. He's not how old he is next season. He's 25 now. So I don't think he can loan anymore. I think he can only loan players on 25, I believe. In a minute.
He's
a good player, but do you take an impairment with a cap he'd take up and like the wage he's on? It's a big salary cap hit.
Yeah, so touch on Gutman. Really like him this season, but I think the one thing that Red Bull's also going to think of, obviously, age-wise, how much cap he's going to take, but also a certain John Tolkien's emergency season. They know that they have got a player there who can walk straight into his shoes. So I really liked him this season. I wish him all the best. But I'm at this moment, I'm going to say, sadly, I think he will be in the MLS next year, but I don't think he'll be with the Red Bulls.
No, I agree with that. The next one, Carl Duncan. So Carl Duncan is a very tough one because we would all love to see Carl Duncan here again next year. Red Bull would love to see him back in MLS. But I don't think it's going to happen. If he was going to sign the contract, he would just signed it by now. And he's going to go back to Europe. Good luck to him. But I think we went to Europe before, it didn't work, and Red Bull took him back. I'm not so sure if he goes to Europe again, it doesn't work out. I think to me, it's like a bit of a sour. It's a bit of a sour end, tending to a bit sour ending.
Yeah, I think with Carl Duncan, I think he's matured a lot game-wise and mentally since he's obviously been a key starter for the Red Bulls. Would I be sad to see him go? Of course, great player, good asset that had a team, but can I see him giving it going in Europe? Sorry, definitely. I could definitely see him in either a Belgian league or a French league, maybe somewhere like that, where he'll get a chance. Not obviously straight in at the top, but obviously you see it a lot more now with Americans in Europe. It's getting more popular. So yeah, sadly I can't see him starting or being at the Red Bulls next year. I think obviously his contract's up, so sadly I don't think I think he's either going to start he's going to be starting the last 5 games, and hopefully you can see it off in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one is Tom Edwards. I would love to see Tom. We're going to pick for both that. We both love to see Tom Edwards. Again, he's on loan from Stoke. It's do Stoke want to sell him? That's a big question. He's only 22, got quite a bright future with him. Do they want to sell him? And also, does he want to move to New York? Not so much do he want to move to New York because New York's lovely city to live in, but does he want to start playing for the Red Bulls and permanent and want to start playing MLS? And then it's do Red Bull want to take he's been quite a large salary. So there's a lot to me, but I think he will be in that season. I think Carl Duncan will be gone So it would be his spot next year. So I think he will be here next year.
I think it's going to be solely dependent on one thing, and I think it depends if Stoke City get promoted to the Premier League. I think at the moment, I think they're currently sitting in 5th or 6th. I think if they're in the Championship, they might actually give him a go, might keep him next year. But also, if they move into the Premier League, I think he's a good player, Tom Edwards. But obviously, when they move in the Premier League, they're going to try and get experienced players in for the Premier League, so they don't want to go straight back down again. So it's a real tricky one. I really want to see him. I really do like him. He's a great person. It seems like he's loved the lifestyle since he's got there. However, it's going to be the first one I think I'm going to disagree. I think he's going to be too good of a story for him to sign him. So I think if we're going to see him next season, I think it might be in the Championship game.
Okay, we'll see. I'm strangely confident.
I really do hope so. Don't get me wrong. Anyone who's listening to this, really hope he does.
Like you said, he's really taken to a lifetime. I think that could be a major factor. I love Tom, but I disagree. I don't think Stoke have been in the Championship for a couple of seasons now. I'm not giving him a chance. I don't see why I was suddenly myself giving him a chance next year. So I don't think the world will be giving him a chance. So I think they will be open to selling him, but I think would Red Bull be willing to meet the price tag would be the big question.
Yes.
The next one is Sean Nealitz.
100%.
Yes, he does have a new contract. The next one is also I said Dryam gets signed. He's going to be next season.
Agreed.
Jason Pendant, he's not going to be next season, or he might. I don't know if his contract is up yet, but they're going to try and get rid of him.
He's
not
could be similar to the Brian White situation where they try and get something for him because it hasn't worked.
Basically, they were really desperate last year for something, and they took a punt, and yet it hasn't worked for him totally. Aaron Long, for years and years and years, we had this: is he going to be here? Is he going to be in Europe? Sadly for Aaron, I can't see him getting that move to Europe now, or not at least next year.
Maybe halfway through next season.
Halfway through next season, I think he'll be 30 by the time the season starts next year. You're in the higher ceiling, bring it to 30 in football. So we'll see, but we'll see. Mandela Egbo. I would love to see him here next season. He's an English lad, but it's not going to happen. I don't think. Barely got a kick up out of it season. Even when we were decimated, we were playing Tom Edwards and God knows who at centre back. We weren't going for him. He wasn't getting called up, so it's just not going to happen. I'm afraid.
No, I do agree. There was options for him to play this season, and Struber's just not keen on him. So, sadly, I don't think he will be part of the franchise next year.
No, John Tolkien, we all know that he's going to be on the road.
I think I expect John Tolkien to be there. However, I would not be surprised if a couple of European teams come sniffing. So, I think he will be there, but
I think we have him for the year. After next year, we might struggle.
He's still very young.
He's still very young. We're going to move on to the midfields now. So it's Funky and Meyer. Obviously, not quite been the debut season we were expecting. Been a mixed season, but he's still very young, only 21. So I think he's going to be next season. I hope he can build on his debut season a bit.
Yeah, I think he's obviously come into Struber's plans a bit more of late. Never easier first year on a team, such high hopes. But no, definitely. I see him playing more of a part next year.
Next one, Julia Eward. It's a very bizarre case, Julia Eward, because he brought in as a designated player and under an under 22 initiative. Then this season, he wasn't getting the team. I mean, he was playing. It didn't look like he was looking really good, but he's had an amazing round rate lately. He will be next year, even for reason he's tied in for next year, and it would cost way too much money to get rid of him. Because he's going to be next season.
Oh no, 100%. I think performances of late as well. I think he's deserved a chance in the team, and I think he will be getting that next year. I think some players it takes longer. It's obviously very different going from Brentford to Red Bulls, different continent, different type of football.
Right.
I expect him to play, just like I said with Frankie Meyer, a bigger part next year to play.
So the next one is Cameron Harper. Very bizarre fact of events. Cameron Harper came in. I remember Scott, who was on the podcast. Scott, he started as left now because he's got other priorities in life. But he was on about. We all expected him to start games. We were talking about him. He can start games. He can have an impact, and it just hasn't happened. He got pulled off the pitch in New England, not long after coming on, and he's basically never really appeared since then. According to this, he made 7 games, played 7 games this season. I'm struggling to remember in 7 games.
Yeah, he came on a few games ago, and I think the one thing with Cameron Harper, and I think people forget he's still very young. He's still 19 years old. So
19, so it's plenty of time.
Yeah.
But he's not quite been we not quite been the signing we were expecting, I don't think.
No, I think Cameron Harper is the luxury player.
Maybe it was too much. Of course, then we did sign Patrick Kamala, who we get on to a bit later.
I think just touched on Cameron Harper. I think he's a luxury player. That he's a very good player to have in your team when you're winning.
Yes.
And obviously at the beginning where our defence was so ravaged by injuries, it was very hard to have players in a system. So I sound like a broken record, but I really do hope he gets a big chance next season, and I think he could do.
Yeah, I think he'll be around. The next one is Ricky Kamona. Okay, Kamona. He's definitely be next season, and he's going to continue to build. And he's an amazing debut season. You have to say that.
100%. One of my favourite
many more games than I thought. I'm not expecting to play 21 games this season.
No, 100% agree. One of my favourite Red Bull players this season, Carmona. I look forward to seeing him in the 22 season.
Yeah, definitely he'll be in that season. Omer Fernandez, he's going to be in that season.
100%.
He really came on lately.
100% agree.
Times in the season, we were saying, well, is he good enough? Yes, he is good enough.
Yeah.
Christian Carter Jr., he's going to be here.
He will be here, but he could be another one where teams could sniff in the European summer window.
European summer window, I think you're right. Sean Davis. Yeah, I think Sean Davis is the player. I'm not so sure.
It's one of them that could they spring a surprise trade or deal?
I'm not so sure. Because I think, he played every single game, but Daphne McCarthy was basically every president when we traded him.
I was going to say, it doesn't always end well with captains at Red Bull.
Played pretty much every game. Lewis Robles played most games. Then we got rid of him all. It happens. I'm not so sure.
I will be set. I'm more certain on this one. I'm going to say he will be wearing the captain's armband.
I mean, I'm going to say he's not going to be in next year. I don't think he's going to be here, mainly because I just think he's going to be in different. I think he'll be in MLS, but I think he's going to be in a different team. I think he'll be traded. I'm not sure with who for yet, but I can't see him being this season. I might be wrong. Caden Clark. Well, this is a big one, Caden Clark, really, because if he continues at a form he had to start of the season, you'd say, well, no way he can be next. He can be playing the starting game at Leipzig. But since he's been announced from Leipzig, since he came back from minor operation, he's been a shadow of his former self.
Yeah. I sadly don't think Caden Clark will be playing for the Red Bulls next year. However, I don't think he'll be playing for Leipzig next year. I think he will go out on loan to a European team. It may be a Salzburg to play with Brendan Aronson and a few other guys there, or even maybe a more bottom half side in the Bundesliga, maybe even someone newly promoted, or maybe like a Werder Bremen in Bundesliga. So I don't think he will be here next year, but I will be keeping a very close eyes on his career.
I'm not so sure. I think he could be back in that season. He's not going to be at Leipzig. And I think at his young age, it's probably doing development quite good to be nearby to his home. Like I did see a stat here. He's played 30 since he came back on loan. He's played 13 games, not a single goal to his name. So he's not exactly going to plan for a young striker, but it's still very hard to say he's not done well. Yuba Diarra,
100%. 100%.
you think so?
Yeah, 100%. I think if it weren't for injuries this year, he would have been playing near enough every game alongside Sean Davis.
He's
And
on
now he.
loan, though, remember? He's on loan.
No, I think he's got. I think Strew was quite high on him. I think how he's been deployed off the bench since coming back from injury. I think it's like I said with Coronel. I think it'd be another loan, but I see him playing for Red Bulls next year.
Right, Mrs. probably wasn't going to hit you quite hard, Ronnie. Danny Royer. Because Danny Royer been an amazing servant to the club. An amazing servant. He's that very all-time greatest. Like when we one day we had to do an episode with our all-time Red Bull team. Like he's in that team. He's in that team with Dr. McCarthy's.
Yeah.
Lewis Robles.
Yep. I think
he's in that. He's in that icon list now.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think obviously anyone who's listened to this podcast knows I'm very high on Danny Roy, and I hope he has a few more years left in his career. I love him to pieces, but sadly,
his time out. He reached national conclusion. Like he's been a great servant, but he gets reached a national conclusion apparently, and that happens in football, sadly. And it's always it's always horrible when it happens. Like I remember when Jack McCarthy left Red Bulls, I was gutted, but it was the right. The story reached a national conclusion. It was the right time for him to move on.
Yeah.
So it does happen, sadly. And we've got 4 players left now. I mean, the forwards. So Fabio.
Whoa.
He's a very tough one because he basically.
All right.
He's not from a Red Bull club. So you're gonna have to buy him. You want to keep him.
Which there is a agreement in place in the loan deal.
Agreement in place. So
I'm going to say no.
Yes,
I like him. I think he started very well, but he hasn't put the ball between the sticks enough to warrant the purchase.
I don't think he will be next season. I think that's sadly how it's going to happen. Patrick Kamala, he's going to be he's not precisely for the reason he's tied in because I spent a lot of money on him.
Also, a very good player in my eyes, and I think
very good player. Not been quite effective enough in goal this season, but I think if he can easily score 15, 20 goals in this league.
And I'm going to put it out there, he's going to get at least 16 goals next season.
Okay, that's a boy promise. Omar Saul.
Yeah, I think he'll get a bigger chance next year.
He's going to be involved somehow. Don
if Brian White goes,
Brian White
goes, stays because I'm not sure. It's a tricky one. I don't think he will be, but I would. It's one of them that I'm not surprised if he stays or if he goes.
My view is pretty clear. But I think his contract out. It's like this. I believe it's like this December.
I think he will depart.
It's not going to be in that season. He won't get a MLS club. Put it that way. He'll be going to USL club. If he gets a USL club. So I'm going to repeat my famous saying I said a couple of months ago. You can't score in a brothel.
Oh yeah, no. And I think obviously
he's a lovely kid. He's just not an MLS striker. And that's a sad thing. Like Brian White, what we say about Brian White? Brian White can carve an MLS career off it because he can score a couple of goals and he can sit a lot of people. Brian White can do none of those things. Not Brian White. Tom Barlow can do neither of those things.
Yeah.
Like, it's just how it is. But good luck to the kids.
No, 100%. And obviously, we'll find out either in 5 games if we don't make the playoffs or after the playoffs of the retain list. And obviously, every player has played very well this year and
Yeah.
tried the hardest. So thank them for it. But our two closing statements. Last one's obviously the famous predictor, which everyone loves and everyone always gets wrong. I think last week Anthony went for a 2-0 and he was very close, and I said 2-1. So I'm going to take the victory on that because I said a 1-goal win. So over to Luke is obviously the person taking me on this week on the predictor. Tricky game, Columbus Crew, but I'm going to say I'm going to say the win streak comes to an end, but the undefeated streak continues. I'm going to say it's going to be Desmond. I'm going to say 2-2.
Okay. I see us just about edging it out. I think it's going to be another close one. I think it's going to be 1-0 again. I keep that record. We're not going to score a lot of goals, but we shut you out. And that's the way
100%.
this is the way this team can win championship game, people. Like some of the work, we've seen some of the teams in this league. Who was it like? Was it Portland teams won it a couple of years ago? Who didn't score loads of goals, but we got a goal and a shut up shop. That's how
100%.
teams win the MLS Cup in this country. And that's how this team can win the MLS Cup this year. It's that simple.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the final thing I'm going to say on this podcast this week to keep people thinking is the Red Bulls have the second lowest goals conceded in the East and third least in the league. And that is being held by a second round super draft pick in Sean Nealis and journeyman goalkeeper Carlos Coronel. However, neither of them are going to be in discussion for goalkeeper of the year or defender of the year. And on that point, we're going to end the podcast. Show some respect to the Red Bulls players, please, MLS. And we will be bringing on the Columbus Crew Saturday at 11 o'clock on Sky Sports. Until next time, come on, you Red Bulls.
Let's go.